mais je pense pas que Emmanuel Macron représente une grande majorité des Français.
C'est surtout du soulagement, parce qu'on a battu l'extrême droite. Il faut falloir qu'on continue le combat pour pouvoir en fait obtenir ce qu'on veut dans les prochaines décisions de Macron.
Mes chers compatriotes, c'est avec ambition et bienveillance pour notre pays, pour nous tous, que je veux pouvoir, à vos côtés, aborder les 5 années qui viennent. Cette ère nouvelle ne sera pas la continuité du quinquennat qui s'achève, mais l'invention collective d'une méthode refondée pour 5 années de mieux, au service de notre pays.
C'est plus possible. Là, aujourd'hui, on va vivre encore 5 années de calvaire et ça va être encore pire. Et les gens s'attendent à quoi? En Outre-mer, on a voté Marine Le Pen, tous les Outre-mer, sans exception. Donc Macron, tu n'es pas le bienvenu.
Alors moi, personnellement, j'étais pas forcément pour Macron. Après, j'ai un peu envie de dire on a dû un peu voter entre la peste et le choléra parce que...
L'impression qu'il y a les riches d'un côté, vraiment les pauvres de l'autre, et les gens, on va dire, normaux qui savent pas trop où aller. Donc voilà, une cohésion par rapport à ça, surtout une solidarité.
Choisi pour diriger la France dans les 5 années qui viennent. C'est Emmanuel Macron qui a donc été reconduit à la tête de la France. Emmanuel Macron qui arrive en tête avec 57,6% des voix.
Je pense enfin à ceux qui ont voté pour Madame Le Pen, dont je sais la déception ce soir. Non, ne sifflez personne. Depuis le début, je vous ai demandé de ne jamais siffler. Parce que, dès à présent, je ne suis plus le candidat d'un camp, mais le président de toutes et tous.
On n'est pas content et on espère beaucoup plus de M. Macron, en l'occurrence, qu'il tienne ses promesses. Voilà.
Vous allez écouter le discours?
Oui, bah oui. Non, pas du tout. Voilà. Toujours aussi arrogant. Voilà. Qu'il écoute un peu ce que M. Mélenchon promet. Et on le souhaite Premier ministre. Oui.
Arrogant, out of touch, biased. These are some accusations that have been repeatedly made against the current and re-elected president of France, Emmanuel Jean-Michel Frédéric Macron. On the 24th of April, Macron defeated his rival Marine Le Pen, prompting a wave of relief in Europe and the West that the far right had been kept out of power.
Emmanuel Macron élu largement donc pour...
With over 58% of the votes, he has now become the first French president to win a second term for 2 decades. But it's a reality check. Le Pen's result also marks the closest the far right has ever come to taking power in France. In 2017, a centrist, pro-European Macron had managed to defeat Le Pen, a fierce nationalist with 66% of the vote. The young former investment banker had shattered France's traditional party system. This time, the margin is much lower. It shows that now the nation is deeply divided. The far right has gone mainstream in France. 5 years ago, Macron became the youngest ever president at the age of 39. During his first tenure, he won praise for his dynamic leadership and crisis management, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic and Ukraine-Russia crisis. But the rise of the far right is an indication that the French are turning to extremist leaders to voice their discontent with the status quo. And then there was this. Although Macron won by a comfortable margin, the abstention rate is the highest since 1969, with a substantial chunk of voters unwilling to vote for either Macron or Le Pen. Several hundred demonstrators across France from ultra-left groups took to the streets in some French cities to protest Macron's re-election.
Macron, démission! Macron, démission! Macron, démission! Macron, démission!
Macron is going to face numerous challenges in his second term, starting with parliamentary elections in June, where keeping a majority will be critical to ensuring he can realize his ambitions to reform France.
Macron is not going to have the majority in the legislation that is going up in a couple of months on the 12th of June. He's going to be forced to create coalition with other party, either the right or the left, and most probably the left and the Green side, the Green Party. We have to remember that Macron managed to gather only 27% of the voters in the first round. This is how much weight he has politically, and all the rest, as he rightly said, they voted for him against Le Pen, but not to support him. Therefore, we have to expect that there will be demonstration in the street. There will be many angry people. Many people fear for their security.
Reviving the economy of the country and tackling the relationship with Ukraine and Russia during the ongoing war will also remain on top of his agenda.
When did you arrive? Ne vous inquiétez pas.
Last August, the 2020 Tokyo Olympics ended with the closing ceremony, putting all eyes on Paris in 2024. France will host the Summer Olympics for the third time, but the first since 1924. While delivering his remarks, Macron quoted the updated Olympic motto, "Faster, higher, stronger, together." he abide by the same motto for his people? What does his win mean for France and the rest of the world? Let's take a look. Even before Macron was officially declared as the winner of the presidential elections, European Union leaders were quick to congratulate the French president. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen tweeted, "Dear Emmanuel Macron, congratulations on your re-election as President of the Republic. I look forward to continuing our excellent cooperation. Together, we will move France and Europe forward." European Council President Charles Michel, too, took to the microblogging site and said, "Bravo, Emmanuel," reflecting relief that one of the bloc's most pivotal countries had avoided a political shock. He further wrote, "In this turbulent period, we need a solid Europe and a France totally committed to a more sovereign and more strategic European Union." Other European leaders from Spain, Germany, Belgium all congratulated Macron soon after his victory. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky also tweeted calling Macron a true friend of Ukraine. Even Russian President Vladimir Putin congratulated Macron. According to a statement from the Kremlin, Putin said, "I sincerely wish you success in your state activities, as well as good health and well-being." Macron was one of the few world leaders to contact Putin since Russia moved its troops into Ukraine on the 25th of February. The French president has spent hours on telephone calls trying to negotiate a resolution to the conflict. At the same time, France also joined the barrage of international sanctions on Russia imposed after its invasion. So, why were the EU leaders worried about Marine Le Pen's win? The far-right leader is a passionate Eurosceptic. During her campaign, Le Pen pledged to dilute French ties with European Union nations and NATO members. She even vowed to stop military cooperation with Germany. Analysts say if she would have come to power, it could have shaken Europe's security architecture as the continent deals with the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war, its worst conflict since World War II.
France is currently the president of the European Council. That every 6 months there's another European Union country that presides the Council, and the country that presides can set the agenda. It can be a very important role. This will last another 2 months till the 1st of July. So Macron really wants to make a lot of progress in the European Union.
Le Pen also spoke against EU sanctions on Russian energy supplies. She even faced scrutiny during the election campaign over her previous friendliness with the Kremlin. Macron's campaign team handed out EU flags alongside election pamphlets at his rallies. Le Pen may have not come to power this time, but her increased vote share has definitely sent out a clear message to all her critics.
Pourtant, c'est Emmanuel Macron que vous accusez d'avoir le melon.
Alors, il est bon ou pas? Dites-moi la vérité. Très bon. Il est délicieux.
However, what we have seen here today, when Le Pen was just about to win, how fragile is Europe and how the arrival of a president like the right wing can just blow up the whole unity of Europe and NATO, but not only Europe, but also the euro as a strong currency. That is serious.
The French economy may have revived from the pandemic, with 7% growth in 2021, higher than Germany, Italy and Spain. But year on year, inflation has soared to new records in the country. Over a year, the consumer price index rose by 4.5% in March 2022, after 3.6% in the previous month. The rising cost of living remained a hot topic throughout the French presidential election campaign, and ultimately it became the single biggest problem for Macron. It helped Le Pen to capture a wider vote share that included the working class, who's historically voted for the left.
He's not going to be able to sustain the normal life and the life that the French citizens were used to before the COVID and before the Ukrainian war. He's going to find it very difficult on the taxes level. He's going to find it very difficult on the boosting the economy. He's going to find it very difficult on all the internal domestic affairs, particularly in economy, to face and to readdress and to adjust to fit the will of the population and the expectation of the population. Therefore, he's going to be confronted with major challenges.
Macron has promised a special bill for the cost of living, indexing all pensions to inflation and reducing costs for the self-employed. But will it help? France's public debt remains high. It was 112.9% of the GDP in 2021. And rising interest rates are expected to make government debt more expensive in the coming years. In 2018, rising pump prices triggered France's worst social unrest since the 1968 students' revolt with the Yellow Vests rebellion that caused months of disruption in Paris and roundabouts across France. Macron needs to have a plan, especially when there is a war in Europe.
One of the things they expect is that life will become cheaper, that it will be easier to find a job, and that the state will be there to protect them. But the current geopolitical situation is very complicated, as is the economical situation. France did not come out very well after the pandemic. Although the unemployment did go down, the public debt went up tremendously. It's now one of the countries with the highest debt in Europe, and also the third biggest unemployment in the European Union. So the country has a very structural economical problems, and while we're now facing more difficulties, like for instance the war in Ukraine, or the rising cost of energy, or the climate change, these are all factors that make it extremely complicated for Emmanuel Macron to do something about the purchasing power of the French people.
Another highlight of the recent elections was Macron's poor performance in overseas French territories. Integral parts of the country, they have a total population of almost 3 million. Le Pen came out easily on top in French Guiana in South America. The Indian Ocean islands of Réunion and Mayotte, and the Caribbean islands of Guadeloupe and Martinique. Macron's performance was poor beyond the mainland. He could only claim victory in the islands in the Pacific, such as New Caledonia and French Polynesia. Why did this happen?
It's no longer possible. Now we are going to live through 5 years of ordeal, and it's going to be even worse. And what do people expect? Today I voted for Marine Le Pen, and I'm fed up. I'm fed up with seeing what has happened. The French have no memory.
There are existing problems. We have water problems. I'm a carer. I come to clients' homes and there is no water to wash people. We appealed to that and nothing was heard. The purchasing power has decreased.
Je suis pour l'interdiction du voile dans l'espace public. Je l'ai dit de la manière la plus claire. Je pense que le voile est un uniforme imposé par les islamistes. Je pense que les grandes parties des jeunes femmes qui le mettent ne peuvent pas faire autrement en réalité, même si elles n'osent pas le dire, puisque celles qui ne le mettent pas, en revanche, témoignent du fait qu'elles sont isolées, du fait qu'elles sont insultées.
La question du voile, c'est la question d'une religion, d'un signe extérieur religieux. La question du foulard, plus exactement, d'ailleurs. Moi, je suis pour la loi de 1905. C'est notre République. La République est laïque. La laïcité, ce n'est pas combattre une religion. Et donc, avec moi, il n'y aura pas l'interdiction ni du foulard, ni de la kippa, ni de quelques signes religieux dans l'espace public, parce que...
This fiery debate before the main election day had put the issue of Muslim headscarves in the spotlight.
For the last 5 years, Macron was very hostile to the Muslim community. And clearly now that he's facing Le Pen, and I think we're actually not very sure who's going to pass. The last week, we've seen that suddenly he's very interested in the Muslim cause, and he's showing interest in Muslim wearing hijab, for example, because that's like the burning subject in France. And so I feel not necessarily used, but I feel the hypocrisy of the situation.
Can Macron safeguard the rights of these women? The French president needs to move fast to douse the flames of polarization. What does his re-election mean for India? Prime Minister Narendra Modi congratulated the French president and tweeted about working together to deepen the India-France strategic partnership. The ties between the two nations are expected to become stronger in the next 5 years. In fact, many analysts say that France is India's new best friend.
I will not be surprised at all if Prime Minister Modi makes a trip to France to personally congratulate Macron, because that's what he did when I was ambassador in 2017. One of the first overseas leaders to come to France and congratulate Macron in 2017 was Prime Minister Modi. Prime Minister Modi has invested heavily in the personal relationship with Macron. And as you know, the Franco-Indian partnership is centered largely on defense, cybersecurity, space, climate change, connectivity. Those issues will become crucial in the next 5 years that President Macron is going to be in power in France.
Climate change is another burning issue in France. In January, a report stated that Macron has failed to tackle climate change, but during his campaign he pledged to go twice as fast to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, getting them down by 40% by 2030. How successful will he be? Macron has several challenges to overcome in the next 5 years. His biggest challenge, for the time being, will remain securing a majority in June's legislative elections. Political opponents have called on voters to deny him a parliamentary majority. If he fails to get one, then Macron will struggle to advance with his popular Eurocentric agendas. What will be his next step? Can he score another win? For France, the game has only just begun.